Standing at the foot of a sacred mountain, you feel it before you even see it, the weight of centuries pressing down, the air thick with stories carved into stone. These aren't just random markings, they're a language, a code left behind by civilizations who believed mountains were more than rock and earth. They were bridges to the divine, canvases for the cosmos. Look closely, and you'll find symbols that map the stars, tales of creation, and even instructions for the afterlife. This is the language of stone, a silent conversation between the ancient world and ours, waiting to be deciphered. From the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas to the rugged cliffs of the Andes, every sacred mountain holds a puzzle. The deeper you dig, the more you realize these carvings aren't just art, they're blueprints. Think of them like ancient instruction manuals, but instead of building furniture, they're guiding souls to the heavens or marking the paths of celestial events. The builders of these sites didn't have modern tools or satellites, yet they encoded astronomical knowledge with stunning precision. How did they do it? And why go to such lengths to etch these messages into the very bones of the earth? That's the mystery we're unraveling today, because when you start to decode these symbols, something extraordinary happens. The mountains stop being silent sentinels and start speaking. They reveal lost myths, forgotten rituals, and even clues about how these cultures saw their place in the universe. By the time we're done, you'll never look at a sacred mountain the same way again. You'll see the hands that carved them, the minds that dreamed them, and the voices that still echo through the stone. So let's begin, because the language of stone has secrets to share, and they've been waiting long enough. To understand why ancient civilizations carved their deepest beliefs into mountains, we have to step into their worldview, where peaks weren't just geological formations, but living thresholds. Picture this: when you stand at the base of a mountain, your gaze is pulled upward toward the sky, the realm of gods and ancestors. That's exactly how our ancestors saw it. These towering giants were the closest places to the heavens, natural altars where the divine felt within reach. That's why cultures from the Andes to the Himalayas chose these slopes as their sacred blackboards. Take Mount Kailash, revered in Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Pilgrims don't just visit, they circle it, a ritual mimicking the path of the sun and stars. The mountain itself is considered a mandala, a cosmic diagram carved by nature. Then there's Mount Sinai, where the 10 Commandments were said to be given to Moses. Here, the stone isn't just a backdrop, it's a participant in the sacred story. These carvings weren't graffiti, they were acts of communion, a way to make the invisible visible. But why carve instead of paint or build? Stone endures. While temples crumble and scrolls fade, mountains stand for eons. The Inca, for example, carved their celestial calendars into rock faces at Machu Picchu, aligning them with solstices so precisely that modern astronomers still marvel. These weren't just decorations, they were functional, a way to anchor time itself to the earth. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part. These carvings were never meant for us. They were messages to the future, a way to say, we were here, this is what we knew. The patterns repeat across continents, a silent testament to humanity's shared yearning. In Norway, Viking runes snake up cliff faces, telling of gods and battles. In Australia, Aboriginal elders still decode ancestral stories etched into Uluru's red rock. It's as if every culture, independently, realized that mountains were the perfect libraries, majestic, immutable, and charged with meaning. So next time you see a mountain, look closer. The stories are there, waiting in the stone. Now let's unravel the first mystery, those repeating patterns that seem to whisper across continents. spirals curling like celestial snakes, concentric circles echoing the ripples of time, labyrinths that twist and turn like the path of the stars. These aren't random scratches on rock. They're a chorus of symbols sung in unison by cultures that supposedly never met. Take the triple spiral of Newgrange, Ireland, carved 5,000 years ago. Then look at the identical motif in the Andes, etched into Huamachuco's stones, separated by an ocean, yet speaking the same visual language. What could possibly connect them? One theory pulses with intrigue. These patterns map the cosmos. The spiral might trace the sun's path during solstices, or the slow dance of Venus across the night sky. Concentric circles could mirror lunar cycles, counting the months between eclipses, and labyrinths, perhaps their sole journeys, guides for the dead navigating the afterlife. The Inca's sect lines, radiating from Cusco like a stone spiderweb, align with constellations and sacred springs. Similarly, Celtic petroglyphs in Spain's Galicia region mirror star clusters visible only at certain times of year. Coincidence unlikely. These cultures were sky watchers and mountains were their observatories. But here's where it gets eerie. Some scholars argue these symbols formed a kind of prehistoric code, a universal language for initiates. Imagine secret knowledge passed down through generations, carried by migrating tribes or traded along forgotten routes. The Hopi in Arizona speak of ancestral ties to distant mountain builders, their own spiral petroglyphs matching those in the Himalayas. Even more startling, Aboriginal Australians describe dreaming tracks that align with carvings in India's Nilgiri hills. Could these patterns be fragments of a shattered wisdom, scattered like breadcrumbs across the globe? Then there's the human element, the sheer physicality of carving these designs into mountainsides. Unlike cave paintings hidden in darkness, these symbols demand effort and exposure. The act itself was sacred. Picture Bronze Age artisans dangling from ropes on Norway's altar cliffs, chiseling runes as seabirds wheeled below, or Maya priests scaling Guatemala's volcanoes to engrave portals to the underworld. The medium was part of the message. By choosing mountains, they anchored their myths to the most immutable canvases on Earth, ensuring the symbols would outlast empires, languages, even memory itself. So next time you see a spiral on a trailside boulder or a labyrinth in a temple ruin, pause. You might be staring at a fragment of humanity's oldest shared story, one written not in ink but in stone and starlight. Now consider this: when the winter solstice sun strikes the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu, it doesn't just cast a shadow. It creates a moment of perfect alignment, a split second where stone and sunlight become a single cosmic clock. This isn't luck, it's mathematics carved into rock, a testament to how deeply ancient cultures wove celestial events into their sacred landscapes. Across the globe, from the deserts of the American Southwest to the highlands of Peru, mountains became more than monuments. They were living observatories, their carvings acting as permanent markers for the dance of the heavens. Take the ancestral pueblones of Choco Canyon. Their spirals and zigzags aren't abstract art. On the summer solstice, a dagger of light pierces through a crevice in Fajada Butte, slicing directly through the center of a carved spiral. It's a solar bullseye, a way to mark time with the precision of a modern calendar. Even more striking, the same culture etched petroglyphs that track the Pleiades, a star cluster that signaled the start of their agricultural year. When those stars dipped below the horizon at a specific angle, the carvings told them it was time to plant. This wasn't just stargazing, it was survival encoded in stone. But here's what's truly mind-bending. These alignments weren't isolated. In Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, pillars carved with animal figures line up with the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky. Over in Ireland, the passage tomb of Newgrange floods with light only on the winter solstice, illuminating spirals that may represent rebirth. And in Egypt, the Great Pyramid shafts point directly to Orion's belt, mirroring the same celestial patterns found in Inca carvings. How did cultures separated by millennia and continents land on the same celestial blueprints? The answer might lie in the rhythms of the Earth itself. Ancient astronomers didn't have telescopes, but they had patient generations of watchers noting how the stars shifted, how the sun's path changed with the seasons. Mountains, as the highest and most stable landmarks, became natural canvases for this knowledge. A carving aligned with a solstice wasn't just a marker, it was a covenant between earth and sky, a way to say, we see the pattern. We belong to it, and perhaps that's the most humbling revelation. These carvings weren't just about tracking time, they were about meaning. When the Inca watched the solstice light hit their stone clock, they weren't just observing a solar event. They were witnessing the sun god Inti renewing his promise to return. The Pleiades weren't just stars, they were the seven sisters, ancestors guiding the way. The cosmos wasn't cold and distant, it was intimate, a story written in light and stone. So the next time you stand under a starry sky, think of those ancient watchers. They looked up and saw not just points of light, but a language, one they carved into mountains to echo across centuries. And in that silent dialogue between rock and sky, they left us a message. The universe is closer than we think. We just have to learn to read it. Imagine standing before an ancient stone carving, not just seeing its intricate patterns but hearing it, feeling the vibrations thrum through your body as a low chant echoes against the rock. This isn't fantasy. Recent discoveries reveal that many sacred mountain sites were engineered as acoustic chambers, their carvings acting as sound amplifiers or frequency modulators. The stones themselves seem to sing, resonating at pitches that mysteriously align with the human brain's alpha and theta waves, the very frequencies associated with deep meditation and trance states. Suddenly, these carvings aren't just silent symbols, they're instruments in a grand, vibrational symphony meant to bridge the earthly and the divine. Take Malta's Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a labyrinth carved 3,000 years before the pyramids. Its oval chambers are precision-tuned to amplify specific tones. When a voice chants at the correct pitch, the sound doesn't just fill the room, it bends, swirling into harmonics that seem to come from everywhere and nowhere. Archaeologists found that certain frequencies here induce a tingling sensation in the skull, as if the stone itself is humming in response, and it's not alone. In Peru's Andes, the Kenko stone near Cusco features spiral channels that, when struck, produce echoes mimicking the roar of a jaguar, a sacred animal believed to carry messages between worlds. Why would ancient cultures go to such lengths to engineer sound into stone? The answer might lie in the power of vibration to alter consciousness. Modern studies show that rhythmic drumming or chanting at 4 to 8 Hz, the same range produced by many of these carvings, can shift brain activity into trance-like states. Shamans from Siberia to the Amazon have used sonic rituals for millennia to access visions or healing. Now we're learning that their sacred sites might have been technological aids, turning mountains into giant resonators. The Mayans even carved whispering galleries into their pyramids, where a murmur at one end travels crystal clear to the other, as if the stones themselves are eavesdropping on prayers. But here's the most haunting part. Some of these acoustic effects aren't accidental. At England's Rollright stones, certain rocks ring like bronze when struck, a phenomenon caused by their unique crystalline structure. Did ancient builders somehow identify and position these singing stones intentionally? And consider this: many sacred sites sit atop geological faults, where seismic activity creates natural infrasound, frequencies too low for human ears but known to evoke feelings of awe or dread. Coincidence, or were these locations chosen because the Earth itself provided the soundtrack to the sacred? The implications are profound. If these carvings were designed to interact with sound, then their creators weren't just artists or astronomers. They were physicists and neuroscientists of their time, manipulating vibration to unlock altered states. A spiral on a rock face might have been a sheet of music, guiding where to stand or strike to produce the desired resonance. The language of stone wasn't just written or drawn, it was sung, a dialogue between human voice and mountain echo that may have been the heart of rituals we can barely imagine. So next time you see an ancient carving, try this. Hum, tap the stone lightly, listen. You might awaken a vibration that hasn't been felt in centuries, a fleeting echo of the moment when sound turned stone into a bridge to the unseen. Now let's turn our gaze to the most enigmatic figures etched into these sacred slopes, the mythic beings that seem to watch over the stone. These aren't mere decorations. They're portraits of the unseen, carved by hands that believed every mountain peak was a meeting place between worlds. In the high passes of the Himalayas, you'll find the towering image of Guru Rinpoche, the lotus-born sage who tamed demons and bound them to the rock. His face, weathered by centuries of wind, stares out as if still guarding the threshold between the human realm and the divine. Meanwhile, deep in the jungles of Guatemala, the Maya carved the feathered serpent Kukulkan into temple steps, its sinuous body undulating like a river of stars. What's striking isn't just the artistry, it's the recurring themes. Across cultures, these beings defy simple categorization. They're hybrids, merging human and animal traits in ways that feel both familiar and profoundly alien. The Navajo speak of the Yayais, spirit figures with elongated bodies and animal masks, who emerge from the sacred peaks of the southwest to teach and heal. In Peru, the Chavin culture carved the Lanzon, a towering fanged deity with serpent hair and clawed hands, deep inside a temple mountain. These aren't random mashups. They're deliberate blurring of boundaries, as if to say, the divine doesn't conform to our boxes. It's wild, untamed, and utterly other. But why place these beings on mountains? The answer lies in the liminal, the in-between. A mountain is neither fully earth nor sky, neither wholly solid nor ethereal. It's the perfect home for entities that exist beyond ordinary perception. The Lepcha people of Sikkim revere Mount Kongchenjunga as the abode of their guardian spirit, a being who rides a snow lion and controls the weather. For them, the mountain isn't just a symbol of the divine, it's the deity's physical body. Similarly, the Javanese see Mount Semeru as the home of Batara Guru, king of the gods, whose laughter is said to echo in earthquakes. These carvings aren't representations, they're invitations, doorways to communion. And then there are the transformations. Many of these mythic beings seem caught mid-change, part human, part beast, as if frozen in the act of becoming. The Norse depicted Odin with raven wings sprouting from his shoulders, while the Hopi Kachina carvings showed dancers merging with eagle and antelope spirits. This isn't just symbolism, it mirrors the shamanic journey where ritualists would don animal masks or skins to traverse realms. The mountain, with its vertical reach, became the ultimate axis for these transformations, a place where a human could shed their skin and step into the mythic. Perhaps that's the deepest secret these carvings hold. They're not just showing us gods or spirits, they're showing us possibilities, the potential within every person to transcend. When a pilgrim touches the weathered face of a mountain deity, they're not just venerating stone, they're touching the part of themselves that remembers how to fly. The spiral on the stone isn't just a shape, it's a mathematical whisper, a secret folded into the rock itself. Sacred geometry turns these carvings into something more than art. They become portals, vibrating with the same ratios that govern galaxies and seashells. Take the golden ratio, a proportion found in everything from hurricane spirals to the curve of a human ear. When ancient artisans carved this ratio into mountain temples, they weren't just decorating. They were replicating the blueprint of creation, embedding the cosmos into the cliffs. Consider Borobudur, the colossal Buddhist temple in Indonesia. From above, it's a perfect mandala, its 9 terraces mirroring the layers of the universe. Pilgrims don't just walk up the steps, they ascend through a geometric meditation, each level representing a stage of enlightenment. The carvings along the way aren't random. They align with precise angles that catch the equinox sunlight, transforming stone into a solar calculator. But here's what's astonishing. The entire structure is built on the Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the sum of the 2 before it. This same sequence appears in pine cones, flower petals, and now we find it etched into a mountain of stone. Coincidence or proof that these builders saw mathematics as a sacred thread connecting all things? Then there's the fractal magic of the Hopi. Their petroglyphs in the American Southwest often feature intricate, repeating patterns, smaller versions of the same shape nested inside larger ones, like echoes in a canyon. Modern mathematicians call these fractals, but the Hopi knew them as the footprints of the Creator. Their carvings of lightning bolts or cornstalks aren't just symbols, they're equations, capturing the infinite complexity of nature in a few chisel strokes. And halfway across the world, the Hindu temples of Ellora repeat this same fractal logic, their pillars and doorways shrinking in perfect proportion, as if the mountain itself is breathing in and out. Why would cultures separated by oceans and millennia arrive at the same geometric language? The answer might lie in the land itself. Mountains, with their layers of rock and sweeping vistas, are natural fractals. A jagged peak looks the same whether you're standing at its base or viewing it from space. Ancient carvers may have simply mirrored what they saw, the world's hidden order made visible. But there's a deeper layer. Plato believed geometry was the language the gods used to build reality. The builders of these sites seem to have agreed. When they carved a perfect hexagon or a spiraling curve, they weren't just making art. They were praying in angles, offering proofs to the divine. Today, scientists are uncovering eerie truths about these patterns. Studies show that certain geometric shapes, like the Sri Yantra's interlocking triangles, can alter brainwave activity, inducing states of deep focus. The labyrinth carvings in Chartres Cathedral, when walked, synchronize footsteps with the heartbeat's rhythm. Could these mountain carvings have functioned similarly as silent conductors of energy, tuning the mind to higher frequencies? The Dogon people of Mali say their cliffside carvings of concentric circles are star maps, encoding the orbit of Sirius. Modern astronomers were stunned to find their accuracy. So the next time you see a geometric carving on a weathered cliff, look closer. That triangle or spiral might be more than decoration. It could be a key, a fragment of the universe's hidden code, left by those who understood that mountains aren't just stone. They're pages in a cosmic textbook waiting to be read. There's a reason ancient carvers chose spots where stone meets water, where cliffs tower over rushing rivers or springs bubble up through bedrock. These weren't just practical decisions. Water, in nearly every sacred tradition, was more than a resource. It was a living thread between worlds, a mirror for the heavens, and a purifier of souls. The petroglyphs at Hawaii's Waihine coast tell this story vividly. Carved into lava rock near freshwater springs, their spirals and humanoid figures seem to dance with the rhythm of the tides. Scholars believe these markings were part of rituals honoring Cain, the god of life-giving water, who was said to dwell in mountain springs. But it's not just Hawaii. From the sacred springs of Delphi at Mount Parnassus to the ritual baths carved into Peru's Kenko complex, water and stone form a recurring duo, a kind of elemental dialogue written into the landscape. Look closer and you'll notice something extraordinary. Many of these carvings aren't just near water, they're shaped by it. In Norway's Alta Fjord, prehistoric spirals chiseled into seaside cliffs align with the reflections of the midnight sun on the water, creating doubled symbols, one in stone, one in liquid light. The Maori of New Zealand carved their ancestral figures into cliffs above thermal pools, where steam would rise like breath from the rock, animating the stone faces with an eerie, living mist. Even the act of carving might have been tied to water's symbolism. Some researchers suggest the circular depressions found in petroglyphs worldwide, often called cupules, were designed to catch rainwater or channel morning dew, a way to literally drink the sky's blessings. But why this obsession with merging stone and water? The answer might lie in the way ancient cultures saw creation itself. The Inca believed their creator god, Viracocha, emerged from Lake Titicaca and carved the first humans from stone before breathing life into them with water. Similarly, the Navajo origin stories describe deities molding the first people from clay near sacred mountain springs. In both cases, water isn't just a tool, it's the sacred ingredient that transforms inert matter into life. This mirrors the geological truth of mountains themselves, their ridges carved by rivers, their caves shaped by underground streams. The carvers weren't just placing art near water, they were echoing the very processes that birthed the land. Rituals at these sites deepen the mystery. At the Chalma Caves in Mexico, pilgrims still bathe in mountain springs beneath carved crosses, blending Christian and indigenous traditions of purification. In Japan's Kumano region, waterfall meditation beneath petroglyph-covered cliffs has been practiced for centuries, the crashing water believed to carry the voices of kami spirits. Even the sound of water seems engineered into some sites. The stepped pools near Peru's Chavín de Huanta, when filled, create harmonic echoes that mimic the roar of a jaguar, a sacred sound linked to the mountain's deity. These weren't random pairings, they were sensory experiences designed to merge sight, sound, and touch into a single act of communion. Perhaps the most profound lesson lies in what these carvings teach us about balance. Stone endures, water flows, one is permanent, the other fleeting. By carving myths into mountainsides near springs or waterfalls, ancient cultures captured this duality, the eternal and the ephemeral, in conversation. The next time you see a petroglyph beside a stream, try this. Dip your hand in the water, then touch the carving. For a moment, you're bridging that same divide, feeling what they felt, the cool rush of the present against the unchanging past, both whispering the same secret, that life, like water on stone, leaves its mark. Creation stories carved into sacred mountains aren't just tales, they're cosmic blueprints, pressed into the earth like fingerprints of the divine. At Uluru, the rust-red rock pulses with Aboriginal Dreamtime narratives, where ancestral beings didn't just create the world, they sang it into existence. Every groove and curve in the stone maps the journeys of the rainbow serpent or the kunia, the python who shaped the valleys with her body. But here's what's extraordinary, these carvings aren't static. They're living. Elders still trace them during rituals, their fingers retracing paths worn by generations, as if the act of touching the stone renews the world itself. It's a reminder that creation isn't a one-time event. It's ongoing, and the mountain is both witness and participant. Now shift your gaze to Mount Kailash, where Hindu pilgrims circle not just a mountain but a story carved in rock. The flanks of Kailash are etched with scenes from the Puranas, Shiva meditating in glaciers, Brahma's lotus blooming from the summit, the universe spiraling outward from this axis mundi. These aren't illustrations, they're anchors. By walking the path and absorbing the carvings, devotees don't just hear the creation myth, they step inside it, their footsteps syncing with the rhythm of the cosmos. The mountain becomes a time machine, collapsing the distance between the first dawn and the present moment. But why encode these stories in stone? The answer lies in permanence and perspective. A mountain doesn't just tower over the landscape, it compresses time. The Zuni people of North America tell how their ancestors emerged from the underworld through a sacred mountain, and the carvings near Zuni Pueblo mark that portal. To stand before them is to stand at the throat of history, where the past exhales into the present. Similarly, the Maori of New Zealand carved the story of Rangi and Papa, the Sky Father and Earth Mother, into the cliffs of the Waikato region. The separation of these primal beings wasn't just a myth, it was a lesson in balance, etched where water and wind could wear the stone smooth, as if nature itself was refining the story. The genius of these carvings lies in their layers. Take the Buddhist mandalas chiseled into the cliffs of Tibet's Mount Meru. At first glance, they're intricate circles and squares. But look deeper and they unfold into entire universes, mountains of jewels, seas of nectar, realms within realms. Pilgrims don't just see these mandalas, they meditate on them, using the stone as a ladder to climb through dimensions. It's as if the carvers knew something we're only now rediscovering, that the deepest truths aren't just told, they're experienced, felt in the body as much as the mind. Perhaps that's the ultimate purpose of these creation carvings. They're not just about how the world began, they're about how we begin, how we locate ourselves in the vastness. When a Navajo child learns their people emerged from the heart of a mountain, marked by handprints in Canyon de Chelly, they're not just memorizing a story. They're touching the place where their identity was forged. The stone becomes a mirror, reflecting not just where they came from, but who they might become. And that's the alchemy of these sacred carvings. They don't just preserve myths, they breathe life into them, generation after generation, turning rock into resonance. The carvings on sacred mountains were never meant to be observed from a distance. They demanded movement, touch, the rhythm of footsteps echoing against stone. Pilgrimage wasn't just a journey to these sites, it was a dialogue with them, a physical unraveling of the self along trails worn smooth by centuries of seekers. Take Japan's Kumano-Kodo, where moss-covered stone markers known as dosajin stand sentinel along the path. These aren't mere signposts. Each one is carved with enigmatic faces or geometric patterns, designed to be touched as pilgrims pass, their fingers tracing grooves darkened by generations of hands seeking blessing. The act of walking the trail while engaging with these carvings transforms the hike into a living meditation, where every step is a stitch weaving the traveler into the mountain's mythic fabric. But why did so many cultures embed their sacred carvings along pilgrimage routes? The answer lies in the power of liminal space, the threshold between the mundane and the divine. Mountains, already bridges between earth and sky, became perfect arenas for ritual transformation. In Tibet's Mount Kailash, pilgrims circle the mountain's base for 52 kilometers, their journey mirroring the path of the sun. Along the way, they pause at carved mantra stones, pressing their foreheads to the rock to absorb its vibrations. The carvings here aren't decorations. They're kinetic, their power activated by motion and touch. Similarly, Spain's Camino de Santiago routes feature petroglyphs of spirals and crosses, placed at intervals where weary travelers might kneel to pray. The wear patterns on these stones tell a story, not just of erosion, but of countless moments where human longing met stone and left its mark. These carvings also served as communal memory. On the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, way stations called kolkas feature carvings of constellations and mountain spirits. As pilgrims rested there, elders would point to the symbols, recounting how the stars guided their ancestors. The stones became textbooks, their lessons reinforced by the physical strain of the climb. In Ethiopia's Simien Mountains, Christian pilgrims still follow routes marked by stone crosses, each one a chapter in a larger story of faith carved into the landscape. The ritual wasn't just about reaching the destination, it was about becoming part of the story the mountain told. The genius of these carvings lies in their interactivity. Unlike static museum pieces, they demanded participation. In Peru's Orsangate region, pilgrims must crawl through narrow stone tunnels adorned with carvings of serpents and condors, their bodies reenacting the descent into the underworld. The act of squeezing through the rock while touching these symbols triggers a visceral connection to myth, blurring the line between observer and participant. Even the act of carving itself was often ritualized. In Bali's Mount Agung, artisans fasted and chanted while etching stone, believing the mountain spirit guided their tools. The resulting carvings weren't just art, they were frozen prayers waiting to be awakened by a pilgrim's touch. Perhaps the most profound lesson lies in what these carvings reveal about sacred geography. A mountain isn't just a backdrop for pilgrimage, it's an active player in the drama. The Celtic carvings along Ireland's Croagh Patrick Trail align with natural springs, turning the climb into a sensory experience where sight, sound, and touch converge. Pilgrims cupping water from a sacred well might glance up to see a spiral carving echoing the whirlpool below, a reminder that the mountain sees them too. This reciprocity between human and stone, movement and meaning, is the heart of these rituals. The carvings don't just mark the way, they transform the walker one step at a time. Among the most haunting carvings on sacred mountains are those that seem to defy reality, figures with elongated limbs, bodies merging with animals, or scenes that twist perspective like a dream. These aren't mistakes or flights of artistic fancy, they're snapshots of shamanic visions, etched into stone to preserve encounters with realms beyond ordinary sight. In Algeria's Tassili Ennaja, towering rock faces are covered with paintings of beings whose arms stretch like tendrils of smoke, their heads crowned with halos of stars. Nearby, antlered figures dance alongside spiraling portals, as if frozen mid-leap between worlds. These images pulse with an energy that's hard to ignore, as though the stone itself is vibrating with the memory of trance. What makes these carvings so compelling is their uncanny resemblance to the visions described by modern shamans. The geometric patterns, zigzags, concentric circles, and labyrinthine lines mirror the entoptic phenomena reported during altered states, the visual noise the brain generates under rhythmic drumming or plant medicines. The Huacol people of Mexico still create yarn paintings that echo their peyote-induced visions, and these bear a striking similarity to petroglyphs found in the American Southwest. It's as if the same cosmic blueprint appears to seers across time and culture, and mountains became the natural canvas for sharing these revelations. But here's the revelation: these carvings weren't just art, they were maps. A shaman's journey often follows a predictable arc, descending into the underworld, battling spirits, retrieving wisdom, and returning to heal. The carvings at Norway's Alta Fjord depict this exact narrative. Boat-like shapes, the vessel for soul travel; wounded figures, the trials of the journey; and towering, godlike beings, the spirits encountered. Even the placement of these carvings matters. Many cluster near caves or crevices, natural portals where shamans would perform rituals to cross between worlds. The stone wasn't just a record, it was a tool, a way to anchor the volatile energy of vision into something solid and communal. The most profound examples come from the San people of southern Africa. Their rock art shows shamans with bleeding noses, their bodies bent backward as if pulled by invisible forces, a precise depiction of the trance state's physical toll. Some figures are half human, half eland, embodying the moment of transformation when the shaman merges with their spirit guide. Nearby, dotted lines connect the figures to the rock face itself, suggesting the stone was seen as a membrane between worlds. This changes how we interpret similar carvings elsewhere. Those swirling lines in Utah's canyonlands, perhaps they're not just abstract designs, but renditions of the vibrating threads shamans describe seeing when traversing dimensions. Yet the boldest claim lies in Siberia's Altai mountains, where petroglyphs show figures wearing what look like mushroom-headed helmets, their bodies surrounded by radiating lines. Local traditions still speak of mushroom shamans who climb the world tree to commune with spirits. Halfway across the globe, the Maya carved their vision serpent, undulating creatures spewing forth ancestor spirits, on temple steps, ensuring every ruler who ascended them ritually retraced the shaman's path. The parallels are undeniable. These carvings were more than symbols. They were training manuals left by those who'd walked the invisible roads and returned to show others the way. So the next time you see a carving of a figure with antlers or a spiral that seems to spin when you stare too long, consider this. You might be looking at a first-hand account of someone's journey into the unseen. And the mountain, silent and steadfast, has been keeping their secrets safe for millennia. The monochrome carvings we see today are ghosts of their former selves, faded echoes of what were once explosions of color. Traces of ochre still cling to the grooves of petroglyphs in Australia's Kimberley region, where Aboriginal elders speak of ancestors painting the stones with crushed hematite and charcoal to wake up the stories within. At China's Mount Huashan, towering red figures loom over the Guangxi River, their crimson pigment mixed with animal fat to withstand millennia of rain. These weren't just decorations. The colors were alive with meaning, turning stone into theater, ritual into spectacle. Why did ancient cultures go to such lengths to paint these carvings? The answer might lie in the alchemy of perception. Red ochre, found from the caves of Lascaux to the cliffs of Petra, wasn't just a pigment, it was sacred currency. The Navajo used it to represent the lifeblood of the earth, while the San people of southern Africa mixed it with egg yolk to paint trance visions, believing the color itself held the power to cross between worlds. When sunlight hit these painted symbols at dawn, the effect would have been electrifying, shapes seeming to pulse or levitate as shadows shifted. At Bolivia's Samipata ruins, archaeologists found carvings of jaguars once painted with alternating red and black stripes, creating an optical illusion of movement when viewed by torchlight. These weren't static images, they were designed to transform under ritual conditions, as if the stone itself was breathing. The choice of colors wasn't arbitrary. In Peru's Chavin culture, white pigment from gypsum marked celestial beings, while green malachite denoted earthly spirits. The contrast would have been stark against the dark stone, creating a visual hierarchy guiding the viewer's eye and perhaps their soul through different realms. Similarly, the Aborigines of Arnhem Land used yellow ochre exclusively for sky heroes, reserving red for ancestral women. The pigments weren't just aesthetic, they were part of the storytelling syntax, a way to encode layers of meaning that mere shape couldn't convey. But here's what's truly fascinating. Some of these paints were more than mineral. At Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, researchers found traces of a shimmering blue-green pigment made from crushed malachite and magnetite, a concoction that would have glittered like starlight under oil lamps. The Maya went further, mixing their famous Maya blue with copal resin, so that the carved faces of gods on Phalanx temples would have released fragrant smoke when heated by the sun. This wasn't just art, It was multi-sensory engineering, blending sight, smell, and even temperature into a single sacred experience. The loss of these colors over time has made us forget how dynamic these sites once were. Imagine the Incas' Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu, not as a gray monolith, but painted with solar gold and lunar silver for solstice ceremonies. Or picture the stone circles of Britain's Callanish, their spirals once filled with crushed quartz that would have glowed under the northern lights. The carvings we see today are skeletons, the bones of a richer, more vibrant language. Yet even in their faded state, they whisper hints of their former brilliance. A streak of red here, a fleck of black there, enough to remind us that the language of stone wasn't just carved. It was painted, polished, and brought to life by hands that understood color wasn't just decoration. It was magic. The cliffs of Gotland aren't just rock, they're frozen battlefields, where Norse gods and giants clash in eternal struggle, their stone limbs locked in combat for over 1,000 years. These carvings don't just tell stories, they crackle with the energy of cosmic war, where Thor's hammer swings toward the serpent Jörmungandr and Odin's spear gleams against the frost giants. But look closer and you'll notice something unsettling. None of these battles have clear victors. The stone preserves the moment of tension, the breath before the strike, as if to say the fight itself, not the outcome, is what matters. This is the paradox of sacred mountains. They're both arenas and arbiters, hosting conflicts while embodying the balance that contains them. The theme repeats globally with eerie consistency. In India's Ellora caves, the entire Kailasha temple is carved from a single mountainside, its walls alive with the Mahabharata's apocalyptic war. Here, gods and demons churn the ocean for immortality, their struggle so intense the stone seems to ripple like liquid. Half a world away, the Maya depicted their hero twins battling the lords of Xibalba on the stelae of Quirigá, their victory ensuring the dawn could rise again. These aren't just dramatic scenes, they're cosmological equations, where conflict isn't destruction but recalibration. The Maya even timed their battles to celestial events. When Venus reached its zenith, the carvings seemed to pulse with the planet's malevolent glow, turning stone into a celestial scoreboard. What's revealing is how often these battles mirror the mountain's own geology. The volcanic slopes of Iceland's Eyjafjallajökull bear carvings of Surtur, the fired giant who'll one day engulf the world in flames, a prophecy etched into the very land where magma simmers beneath glaciers. Similarly, Japan's Mount Aso, an active caldera, is adorned with Shinto reliefs of Susanoo slaying the eight-headed serpent Yamata no Orochi, the serpent's coils mirroring the mountain's steam vents. It's as if the carvers were saying, the gods' wars aren't metaphors, they're happening right here in the earthquakes and eruptions underfoot, but the true genius lies in the carving's unfinished quality. At Sweden's Tengilgata stones, some figures are only half carved, their opponent's axes forever suspended mid-swing. This wasn't abandoned work, it was intentional. Like the Norse concept of Ragnarök, where the world ends only to be reborn, these incomplete battles remind us that the struggle isn't meant to conclude. The mountain, enduring through cycles of ice and fire, becomes the ultimate symbol of resilience. Even in the Apache carvings of Arizona's Superstition Mountains, where Thunderbird fights the horned serpent, the grooves are deliberately shallow, so rain will gradually erase and renew them, mirroring nature's own cycles of destruction and renewal. Perhaps that's why these cosmic battles were carved where they were, not on temple walls or palace gates, but on mountains, the only witnesses ancient people trusted to hold such immense truths. When a Tibetan pilgrim touches the carved battle between the protector deity Dorje Shugden and his foes at Mount Kailash, they're not just seeing a myth. They're pressing their palm against the pulse of existence itself, where every conflict, every tremor is part of the mountain's slow, sure dance toward balance. The labyrinth carved into the rock face isn't just a puzzle, it's a pilgrimage in miniature, a journey condensed into stone. High in the Andes, the Kenko maze winds like a serpent across granite, its channels too narrow for footsteps but perfect for tracing with a finger. This isn't unique. From the spiral petroglyphs of Hawaii's Paioloa to the labyrinthine tombs of Ireland's Loughcrew, sacred mountains worldwide whisper the same truth: the path isn't straight. It twists, doubles back, and sometimes leaves you standing where you began, yet forever changed. Consider the startling parallels between the Cretan labyrinth home of the Minotaur and the Chakravyuha carvings on India's Chamundi Hill. Both are seven-circuit designs, both were said to trap the unworthy, and both appear near sacred peaks where initiation rites occurred. But here's the revelation: these aren't just stories. At Peru's Chavin de Huanta, archaeologists found a stone labyrinth where initiates would drink hallucinogenic infusions, then navigate the carvings blindfolded. The grooves in the rock are worn smooth where fingers clutched for guidance, physical proof of countless souls wrestling with their own inner minotaurs. The mountain didn't just host the ritual, it became the maze, its passages mirroring the neural pathways firing in the initiates' minds. Why labyrinths? The answer lies in their duality. Unlike mazes with dead ends meant to confuse, sacred labyrinths have a single winding path leading unerringly to the center. The challenge isn't solving it, it's surrendering to it. Tibetan monks still meditate on carved labyrinths called Gil Kor, their fingers tracing the path as a metaphor for the cyclical nature of existence. The Hopi depict their emergence myth as a labyrinth called the Mother Earth symbol, where the center represents the Sipapu, the portal between worlds. Even the layout mirrors their sacred black mesa. The trails up its flanks aren't straight but zigzag, forcing climbers to switch back like the thread of a labyrinth slowly ascending. The most profound examples blur the line between art and utility. In Malta's Haga Kim Temple, a labyrinth carved near an altar aligns with the summer solstice sunrise. As light creeps through the temple corridor, it illuminates the carving center precisely at dawn, transforming stone into a clockwork metaphor for enlightenment. Similarly, the Tintagel labyrinth on Cornwall's cliffs twists toward a central cupule where rainwater collects, turning the design into a literal vessel for the sky's blessings. These carvings weren't just symbols, they were functional tools for transformation, where the act of following the path triggered revelation. Perhaps that's why labyrinths endure. When you stand before one carved into a mountainside, you're not just seeing a pattern, you're seeing a mirror. The false turns echo our doubts, the switchbacks mimic life's surprises, and the center, always reached if you persist, holds the oldest promise of all, that every winding road leads eventually home. The mountain knows this truth in its bones, having been shaped by rivers that never run straight yet always find the sea. And so it offers these carvings like a whispered secret. The journey isn't about the destination. It's about the turns that shape you along the way. The carvings at Bhimbetka don't fight the rock, they dance with it. A bison's hump follows the natural curve of a sandstone overhang, its legs bending to accommodate a fracture line in the stone. A hunting scene spills across a cliff face, the figures positioned so that morning light casts their shadows onto adjacent grooves, animating the tableau with the sun's daily passage. This isn't just adaptation, it's collaboration. The artists didn't impose their vision onto the mountain. They listened to it, allowing cracks, ridges, and mineral veins to become part of the story. The result feels alive, as if the stone had always contained these images, waiting for human hands to reveal them. This principle echoes across sacred sites worldwide. In Utah's 9 Mile Canyon, a panel of barrier canyon-style figures seems to emerge from the rock's iron oxide streaks, their elongated bodies mirroring the vertical fissures in the cliff. The effect is uncanny. These beings don't stand on the stone, they step out of it, their contours blending with the rock's own skin. Similarly, Norway's altar petroglyphs use glacial striations as waterways in hunting scenes, turning ancient ice scars into part of the narrative. The carvers weren't just working around nature's imperfections, they were treating the mountain as a storyteller, its existing features providing the plot points. But the most profound integrations are interactive. At Peru's Sahuite stone, a massive granite boulder is carved with over 200 zoomorphic and geometric designs that align with natural depressions. When rainwater collects, it flows along channels that animate the carving, serpents appearing to swim, pumas lapping at suddenly real pools. The effect transforms weather into ritual, turning a downpour into a sacred performance. Over in Japan, the Jomon period carvings at Mount Dake integrate lichen growth patterns into their designs, so the figures seem to age and change with the centuries, their stone faces now framed by living green beards. Why this obsession with blending art and geology? The answer might lie in how these cultures perceived the act of creation. The Aboriginal concept of dreaming isn't about humans inventing stories, it's about uncovering songs already woven into the land. When a Yolngu artist in Australia paints over a rock's natural stains to reveal the rainbow serpent, they're not creating so much as collaborating with country itself. The same ethos pulses through the Lakota, a tradition of reading sacred messages in the veins of pipestone before carving it into prayer objects. The stone isn't raw material, it's an active participant. Modern science offers an eerie parallel. Quantum physics suggests particles change behavior when observed, as if reality responds to perception. Ancient carvers may have intuited a similar truth, that by engaging deeply with the mountain's existing form, they could tease out latent narratives the stone held all along. The crack that becomes a river in a petroglyph, the shadow that turns a static carving into a moving image at solstice, these aren't accidents. They're evidence of a dialogue between human imagination and earthly intelligence, where both voices shape the final myth. So the next time you see a carving that follows a rock's fissure like a whispered secret, look closer. That's not compromise, it's conversation. The mountain spoke first. The artist simply leaned in to listen. Among the towering figures and celestial spirals carved into sacred mountains, another presence quietly emerges: the enduring shape of trees. Not just any trees, but mythic ones, their roots digging deep into the underworld, their branches brushing the heavens. The Norse called it Yggdrasil, the immense ash tree that held the 9 realms in its boughs. The Maya depicted it as the Siba, its thorny trunk a ladder for souls ascending to the stars. And in the Himalayas, it's the Kalpa Vriksha, the wish-fulfilling tree of Hindu and Buddhist lore. These arboreal carvings aren't mere decoration. They're the spine of the cosmos, etched into stone as if to remind us that even mountains bow to the deeper power of roots and branches. Take a closer look at the world tree carvings in Mesoamerica's Monte Alban. The stone ceiba here isn't static. Its roots morph into serpents. Its fruits transform into human faces, as if the tree itself is a living transformer of energy. Similarly, in Sweden's Tanum petroglyphs, Yggdrasil appears not as a solitary figure but as the center of a whirlwind, its branches twisting into the great serpent Jörmungandr while an eagle perches at its crown. The genius of these carvings lies in their dynamism. They capture the tree not as an object but as a process, a living conduit between worlds. When sunlight hits the grooves at certain angles, shadows play across the stone like leaves rustling in an unseen wind. But why carve trees into mountains? The answer pulses through the very rock. Trees and mountains share a sacred geometry. Both are vertical connectors, bridging earth and sky. A mountain's peak mirrors a tree's canopy. Its hidden mineral veins echo the secret spread of roots. The Lakota medicine man Black Elk once described the Black Hills as the heart of everything that is, where trees were the arteries pulsing with spiritual energy. This symbiosis is carved literally into Japan's Mount Miwa, where Shinto priests still tie sacred ropes around ancient cedars that grow from cracks in the rock, binding the living and the lithic into a single prayer. The most haunting examples blur the line between tree and stone. In Peru's Maca Huamachuco, a stylized tree carving's roots follow the natural fissures in the andesite, as if the rock itself is sprouting. Over in Armenia's Jegam Mountains, petroglyphs of pomegranate trees, symbols of fertility, are carved where natural iron deposits stain the stone red, making the fruits appear to bleed. These carvers didn't just depict trees, they revealed the arboreal potential sleeping within the mountain, waiting to be awakened by chisel and vision. Perhaps the ultimate testament to these arboreal carvings lies in their endurance. While real forests burn or fall, the stone trees remain, their roots gripping the mountain as tightly as the myths they represent. They ask us to consider, if a mountain is a frozen giant, then these carvings are its silent songs of photosynthesis, its dream of leaves rustling in a wind that hasn't blown since the world began. The spider carved into the Nazca Desert isn't just a giant sketch on the earth. It's a celestial map, its legs mirroring the constellation Orion as it appeared over Peru 2,000 years ago. This isn't unique. From the soaring condors etched into Andean cliffs to the jaguars snarling from Mayan stelae, sacred mountains worldwide pulse with animal symbols that defy simple explanation. These creatures aren't decorations. They're keys, living ciphers that unlock relationships between clans, constellations, and the spirit world. Take the hummingbird, a recurring motif from the Nazca lines to Hopi petroglyphs. To the untrained eye, it's just a bird, but delve deeper, and it becomes a solar symbol, its wings beating so fast they're said to stitch together time itself. The Navajo revere it as a healer, carrying pollen from sacred mountains to bless the land. Meanwhile, in the Andes, the same hummingbird symbol appears near solstice markers, its beak pointing to where the sun rises on the shortest day of the year. 3 cultures separated by continents, yet all seeing in this tiny creature a bridge between earthly and cosmic rhythms. Then there's the jaguar, the ultimate shapeshifter of sacred carvings. In Olmec mountain sanctuaries, it's depicted mid-transformation, its muzzle melting into human features. The Maya carved it with constellations for spots, linking it to the night sky's dance. But in the Amazon, the jaguar becomes a river, its spine the winding path shamans follow to the underworld. What unites these visions? The jaguar's ability to move between realms, trees, water, land, making it the perfect guide for souls navigating the mountain's vertical cosmos. Some carvings go even further, encoding entire creation stories in animal form. The Aboriginal rock art of Arnhem Land shows the rainbow serpent coiled around waterholes, its body both a map of the land and a timeline of creation. Similarly, the Lakota's Black Hills bear horse carvings that aren't just animals, they're the thunder beings who taught humans to ride the wind. These symbols collapse time, turning stone into living memory. But perhaps the most haunting examples are the hybrid creatures. The chimera of Greek myth appears in Lycian mountain carvings, its lion-goat, serpent body a fusion of Earth's kingdoms. In Norway, elk petroglyphs sprout boat-like antlers, merging hunter and vessel. These aren't monsters, they're metaphors, reminders that all life is interconnected, and the mountain is the loom where these threads knot together. So next time you see an animal carved into sacred stone, look beyond the surface. That wolf or eagle isn't just an icon. It's an ancestor, a constellation, a prayer, whispering that to understand the mountain, you must first learn to speak the language of the wild. The carvings at Fajota don't just sit there, they come alive when the sun touches them. At summer solstice, a dagger of light slices through a narrow crevice in the rock, piercing the center of a spiral petroglyph like an arrow hitting its mark. This isn't accidental, it's celestial choreography, a dance of stone and sunlight planned centuries ago with nothing but keen observation and patient hands. But this solar spectacle in New Mexico is just one thread in a global tapestry of sacred carvings designed to harness reflections, turning passive rock into dynamic theaters of light. Consider the ancient observatory of Chanquillo in Peru, where 13 stone towers line a ridge like jagged teeth. From a precise viewing platform, the sun rises behind each tower at fixed intervals, marking the year's progression with the accuracy of a modern calendar. The real magic, though, happens at dawn on the equinoxes, when the sun aligns perfectly between two central towers. Its light reflects off polished quartzite carvings, casting a double beam onto a ceremonial plaza below. The effect is deliberate, transforming the mountain into a sundial that doesn't just tell time, but ceremonially announces it, as if the gods themselves are punching a cosmic clock. Then there's the mystery of Scotland's Callanish stones. On certain moonlit nights, the glacial grooves in these standing stones catch the silver light at just the right angle, projecting shimmering lines across the ground that mirror the carvings of lozenges and spirals on their surfaces. Local legends say these reflections are the paths of the ancestors, visible only when the veil between worlds is thin. Similarly, in India's Ellora caves, the Kailasha temple's carvings of dancing Shiva are positioned so that monsoon rainwater pools in specific grooves, creating mirrors that multiply the god's image into an infinite cosmic dance when lit by oil lamps. Why this obsession with reflections? The answer might lie in how ancient cultures perceived light itself. To the builders of Malta's Halsafliani hypogeum, sunlight wasn't just illumination, it was a divine messenger. Their underground chambers feature carvings of spirals and eyes positioned to catch the winter solstice sunrise through a small opening, projecting swirling patterns onto the walls that pulse like living entities. Modern experiments show these reflections move in sync with certain sound frequencies, suggesting the carvings were part of audiovisual rituals designed to alter consciousness. Light wasn't just seen, it was felt, a tactile force woven into sacred experience. The most ingenious examples blur the line between art and astronomy. In Turkey's Göbekli Tepe, pillar carvings of animals align with the morning star's reflection in a nearby stone basin during the spring equinox, making the celestial event literally rise from the earth. Meanwhile, the ancestral Pueblones carved mirrored petroglyphs on opposite sides of Choco Canyon's cliffs. When the sun sets at midsummer, the two images reflect onto a central boulder, merging into a single hybrid figure. These weren't just pretty effects, they were acts of sacred symmetry binding sky to earth, past to present in a single luminous moment. Perhaps that's the true brilliance of these reflective carvings. They refuse to stay still. Unlike static paintings or sculptures, they change with the day's hour, the year's season, the moon's phase. A spiral that's invisible at noon might blaze to life at sunset. A shadowy beast carved into a cliff might only stir when the full moon kisses its outline. The mountain becomes a collaborator, its silent stone holding secrets that only light can unlock. And when that light comes, whether as a solstice dagger or a moonbeam's whisper, it doesn't just illuminate the carving. It resurrects the intent of the hands that made it, reaching across centuries to say, watch closely, the world is brighter than you think. The stone isn't just a canvas, it's an apothecary. High in the Himalayas, pilgrims still press their foreheads to cupules carved into the rock, believing these small depressions hold the power to absorb pain. In Australia's Northern Territory, Aboriginal elders pour rainwater into similar hollows, mixing it with crushed medicinal leaves before anointing the sick. These carvings aren't just symbols, they're vessels designed to bridge the gap between spiritual belief and bodily healing. Across cultures, sacred mountains became the world's first hospitals, their carvings functioning as both prayer and prescription. Take the mysterious cup marks found from Scotland's Kilmartin Glen to India's Kupkul Hill. Archaeologists once dismissed them as random indentations until they noticed their placement. Many cluster near natural springs or medicinal plants, their depths stained with traces of iron-rich ochre or herbal residues. The Maori of New Zealand call these carvings Wai Wakaora, or healing waters, and use them to steep tonics from native ferns. Even more intriguing, some cupules align with solstice light, suggesting they were timed to charge remedies with solar energy. This wasn't just folk medicine. It was precision healing, where the mountain's geometry amplified nature's pharmacy. Then there are the carvings that serve as anatomical guides. In Peru's Chavin de Huanta, a stone slab depicts a jaguar with its paw resting on a human spine, a likely reference to shamanic bone-setting practices. The nearby Tello obelisk is etched with hallucinogenic plants alongside nerve-like lines, possibly mapping the body's response to visionary medicine. Similarly, the Lascaux caves feature horses overlapped with dots that match acupuncture points, though they predate Chinese medicine by millennia. These carvings suggest a lost global tradition, healing as a sacred art where treating the body meant aligning it with cosmic patterns. The most compelling evidence comes from sound. Many healing carvings double as resonance chambers. At Malta's Tarxian temples, spirals carved near cupules vibrate at frequencies known to promote bone regeneration when struck. The Cherokee's Judaculla rock in North America has grooves that, when rubbed with a wet hand, produce infrasound pulses that ease migraines. Modern studies show these vibrations can stimulate cellular repair, proof that ancient healers may have mastered sound therapy long before science caught up. But perhaps the most profound healing carvings are those that acknowledge the mind's role. The Norse Valknut symbol, found on Scandinavian mountain shrines, interlaces three triangles to represent the interconnectedness of thought, body, and spirit. Patients would trace the carving while chanting, a ritual now recognized as an early form of cognitive behavioral therapy. In Ethiopia's Tigray region, depression sufferers still press their hands into carvings of sunbursts, a practice echoing modern light therapy for seasonal affective disorder. These stones don't just tell stories of healing, they remain active participants in it. When a Navajo medicine man uses a chant to awaken a mountain carving before gathering herbs, or a Tibetan monk aligns a healing mandala with the slope of Mount Kailash, they're continuing a dialogue begun millennia ago. The mountain isn't just rock, it's a partner in healing, its carvings whispering the oldest truth of all. That wellness was never just about the body, but the sacred landscape it inhabits. The petroglyphs at Choco Canyon aren't just random scratches on rock, they're a celestial ledger, a permanent record of the night sky as it appeared over 1,000 years ago. Look closely and you'll notice clusters of dots that mirror the Pleiades star cluster, jagged lines tracking the path of a comet, and spirals that align with the solstice sun. But the most startling discovery came when researchers noticed a peculiar carving near Fajada Butte, a swirling symbol with a burst at its center, matching historical records of a supernova that lit up the sky in the year 1054. This wasn't just art, It was astronomy etched into stone, a way to pin the heavens to the earth so the knowledge would outlast paper, ink, or memory. This phenomenon isn't unique to the Southwest. In India's Burzahum region, Neolithic carvings depict two hunters and a dog chasing a stag, except the stag is positioned exactly where the constellation Orion rises during the autumn equinox. The hunters, they align with Sirius and Procyon, the brightest stars in the winter sky. Halfway across the world, the Lascaux Caves in France feature a painted bull with 6 dots above its shoulder, a near-perfect match for the Pleiades as they appeared 17,000 years ago. These aren't coincidences. They're proof that sacred mountains and caves became humanity's first observatories, their carvings functioning as celestial flashcards for generations of sky watchers. What's truly remarkable is how these cosmic maps encode time as well as space. The 3-pronged symbol carved into Scotland's Callanish stones doesn't just represent the moon, it marks the 18.6-year lunar standstill cycle, when the moon pauses at its most extreme position in the sky. Similarly, the Nazca spider's elongated legs don't just mimic the arachnid's shape. They point to the rising position of Orion's belt during the winter solstice 2 millennia ago. These carvings weren't static pictures. They were dynamic calculators, allowing priests or shamans to predict eclipses, track planting seasons, or time sacred rituals with pinpoint accuracy. The sophistication goes deeper. Some researchers believe these carvings functioned as multi-layered star charts. The spiral petroglyphs common in the American Southwest, for example, might represent not just single stars but entire galaxies when viewed from different angles. At Utah's Newspaper Rock, overlapping carvings of spirals and animals create a palimpsest effect. Shift your perspective, and the same lines transform from a bighorn sheep to the Cygnus constellation. This suggests the carvers understood parallax millennia before modern astronomy, encoding shifting celestial perspectives into immutable stone. But why go to such length? The answer might lie in the impermanence of the sky itself. Stars drift, comets fade, supernova explode and vanish. By carving these events into mountains, ancient cultures anchored the cosmos to something eternal. The Maya took this further, embedding celestial maps into the very layout of their cities. At Capon, the temples align with Venus's extreme positions, while the ball court mirrors the Pleiades' descent into the underworld. The mountain wasn't just a canvas, it was a collaborator, its bulk providing the fixed point against which the heavens' dance could be measured. Perhaps the most humbling realization is that these carvers worked without telescopes or written records. Their tools were patience, memory, and an intimate knowledge of the night sky's rhythms. When a Hopi elder today points to a petroglyph and names a star, they're not guessing, they're accessing an unbroken chain of knowledge stretching back thousands of years. The mountain remembers what books cannot, and if we learn to read its language, we might just decipher the cosmos anew. The petroglyphs along Hawaii's lava fields aren't just markings, they're frozen chants. Each groove and curve corresponds to a stanza in the Cumulipo, the Hawaiian creation chant that traces genealogy back to the birth of the islands. When elders run their fingers over these carvings, they're not just seeing shapes, they're hearing the voices of ancestors, feeling the rhythm of waves and wind encoded in stone. This is ancestral memory made tangible, where rock becomes a ledger of lineage, a way to hold centuries of stories against the erosion of time. This practice of turning stone into storytelling isn't unique to the Pacific. In Scandinavia, runestones stand like skeletal trees, their interlacing patterns and cryptic inscriptions acting as prompts for skalds, poets who could recite entire sagas from memory. The carvings weren't meant to be read like modern text, but to trigger recollection. A single serpentine motif might unlock the tale of Sigurd slaying the dragon Fafnir, while a spear symbol could summon the epic of Odin's sacrifice. The stones didn't just preserve history, they were collaborative performances where the carver provided the cue and the storyteller brought the words to life. The Aboriginal Australians took this further, weaving geography into the act of remembering. Their rock art isn't isolated, it's part of songlines, intricate networks of stories that crisscross the continent. A kangaroo carving in Arnhem Land doesn't just depict an animal, it marks a note in a song that, when sung, guides travelers across hundreds of miles. The grooves in the stone mirror the rises and falls of the melody, turning the land itself into a musical score. To follow these carvings is to walk through a living library where every cliff and outcrop holds another verse. But how did these mnemonics work so precisely? The secret lies in multisensory encoding. The Maori's Wakero carvings in New Zealand feature textured patterns, some smooth, some jagged, designed to be touched while reciting genealogies. The tactile sensation anchored the words, creating a physical memory loop. Similarly, the Lakota's winter counts pictographs carved into buffalo hides were arranged in spirals that mirrored the brain's natural recall patterns. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Associative triggers, especially those involving touch and spatial awareness, dramatically enhance memory retention. These carvers weren't just artists, they were cognitive architects. Perhaps the most poignant examples come from West Africa's Dogon people. Their cliffside carvings near the Bandiagara escarpment depict the Namo, ancestral fish-like beings who brought wisdom to humanity. Each symbol corresponds to a specific tonal pattern in the Dogon language, turning the rock face into a kind of linguistic Rosetta Stone. During ceremonies, elders trace the carvings while chanting, blending sight, sound, and movement into a single act of remembrance. The stone doesn't just store the story, it demands participation, ensuring the knowledge lives not just in the mind, but in the muscles and bones of each new generation. This changes how we view these carvings. They're not passive records, but active invitations, a call to lean in, touch, and add your voice to the chorus. When a Hawaiian child learns to trace the petroglyphs of Makini Heiau, they're not just memorizing history, they're pressing their fingertips into the same grooves their ancestors touched, completing a circuit that spans centuries. The stone remembers, and through it, so do we. The carvings on Japan's Mount Miwa don't just depict gods, they show them split in two. One side of the rock face bursts with sunlight, the other drowns in shadow, yet both halves form a single, seamless figure. This isn't just artistry, it's a visual manifesto declaring that opposites don't cancel each other out, they complete each other. From the Taoist yin-yang symbols chiseled into China's sacred peaks to the Zoroastrian carvings of Iran's Mount Sabalan showing Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu locked in eternal struggle, sacred mountains worldwide whisper the same truth: duality isn't conflict. It's the engine of existence. Consider the Andean concept of Yanantin, the belief that all things exist in complementary pairs. At Peru's Kenko sanctuary, carvings of serpents intertwine like DNA strands, one representing the underworld, the other the heavens. Yet their coils create a central space where pilgrims once placed offerings, as if balance itself was the altar. Similarly, Hawaii's Paioloa petroglyphs feature paired fishhooks, one facing left for the masculine sun, the right for the feminine moon. The message is clear: opposites aren't just connected, they're interdependent. A fishhook can't catch unless both curves work in concert. The most striking examples emerge where duality becomes dialogue. In India's Elephanta caves, a three-faced Shiva carving shows the god as creator, preserver, and destroyer simultaneously. The left profile smiles serenely, the right snarls in fury, while the center gazes beyond both, a stone meditation on how extremes dissolve in higher unity. Over in Ireland, the Tyrone stone's swirling designs alternate between clockwise and counterclockwise spirals, mirroring the Celtic belief that life spins between light and dark seasons like a wheel. These carvers didn't see duality as a problem to solve, but as a rhythm to honor. But why carve these concepts into mountains? The answer lies in geology itself. Mountains embody paradox, eternal yet ever-eroding, solid yet born from cataclysm. The Incas venerated Apus, mountain spirits that were both benevolent protectors and deadly avalanche bringers. Their carvings at Sayhuite show this duality literally. One side of a boulder features fertile terraces. The opposite side is carved with glacial cracks, as if the stone itself holds summer and winter in tension. Modern physics offers an eerie parallel. Quantum particles can exist in two states at once until observed, much like Shiva's dual faces. The mountain carvers may have grasped this intuitively, using stone to freeze fluid truths into tangible form. When you run your hand over a yin-yang carving on a Tibetan cliff, you're not just touching art. You're touching the pulse of the universe, where every up has its down, every light its shadow, and the mountain stands as the eternal witness to both. The same wind that wears down mountains also whispers their secrets. Look closely at the sandstone cliffs of Utah's Canyonlands, where centuries of erosion have softened the edges of ancestral Puebloan petroglyphs, yet somehow the deepest grooves remain, as if the stone itself refused to forget. This isn't just preservation, it's collaboration. Many indigenous traditions speak of carvings not as static art, but as living entities that breathe through erosion. The Maori of New Zealand describe their cliffside carvings as talking rocks, where every droplet of rain that wears them down carries fragments of their stories into rivers, then oceans, spreading sacred knowledge like a slow geological broadcast. Now shift your gaze to Norway's Alta Fjord, where glacial scraping should have obliterated the Bronze Age carvings. Instead, the ice polished them into eerie clarity, as if nature was refining the message. The Sami people believe this interplay between human mark and natural force isn't destruction, it's dialogue. Their shamans speak of stone voices growing louder as weathering exposes new layers of quartz beneath the petroglyphs, changing their resonance under the midnight sun. Modern geologists confirm something startling. Many sacred carvings cluster around rock types with unusual erosion patterns: limestone that dissolves into lace-like filters, or basalt that fractures into geometric columns. The ancients didn't just accept erosion, they harnessed it, turning weathering into a sacred clock. Consider the weeping stones of Peru's Kenko complex. The Inca carved channels into andesite so precisely that morning condensation flows along glyphs of serpents, making them appear to slither as the rock sweats. Over centuries, this daily cycle has deepened the carvings, transforming what might seem like wear into a ritual enhancement. Similarly, in Australia's Burrup Peninsula, Aboriginal elders note how iron-rich patina slowly reclaims petroglyphs, turning red ochre carvings into shadows that pulse with the oxidization of the rock itself, a process they call the land remembering in rust. But the most profound examples emerge where cultures intentionally carved for erosion. Japan's Kumano-Kodo pilgrimage trail features sutra stones inscribed with Buddhist texts meant to fade. As the characters vanish grain by grain, devotees believe the teachings are liberated into the world. Contrast this with the Viking runestones of Sweden, whose runes were cut against the grain of the rock so frost would split them open along the inscriptions, a deliberate act of awakening the stone's voice through seasonal fracture. Both approaches reveal a radical truth. These carvers saw time not as an enemy but as a co-artist. Science now catches up to this wisdom. researchers at Chile's Atacama Desert discovered that carvings on salt crusts regenerate at night through capillary action, their grooves refilling with mineral deposits like self-healing wounds. Meanwhile, in Arizona's petrified forest, solar imaging revealed that eroded petroglyphs still cast shadow versions of their original forms during equinox sun angles, ghost images etched not in rock but in light. The mountain doesn't surrender its stories easily, it transforms them, so the next time you see a weathered carving, don't just lament the missing pieces. Lean closer, that smooth patch where a goddess's face once smiled. The wind didn't erase her, it set her free. The story doesn't end with the ancients. Right now, as you watch this, lasers are tracing the contours of thousand-year-old petroglyphs in the American Southwest, not to replace them, but to listen. Archaeologists armed with 3D scanners move like modern-day scribes, capturing every groove and curve of the White Shaman Rock in Texas, a site once thought to depict a simple hunting scene. But when sunlight hits the new digital renderings at a 5-degree angle, something extraordinary emerges. Hidden layers of paint and previously invisible carvings reveal the rock to be a celestial map, tracking Venus's journey through the underworld. This isn't just preservation, it's resuscitation using infrared and LiDAR to hear whispers the naked eye could never catch. What's even more groundbreaking is who's holding the scanners. In Australia's Murujuga, Aboriginal elders guide researchers to sacred sites, teaching them how to read the land's subtle cues, a rust-colored stain indicating ochre beneath the surface, or a Chinese letter alignment of boulders signaling a carving's presence. The result, a fusion of millennia-old tracking skills and cutting-edge tech. When the Wajari Yamaji people partnered with archaeologists to document the Murchison petroglyphs, they didn't just scan the rocks, they recorded the stories behind them, layering oral histories onto 3D models like invisible ink. Suddenly, a spiral isn't just a shape, it's the path of the rainbow serpent, its curves mirroring the songlines that still guide ceremonies today. But the race against time is real. In Norway's altar, lichen devours carvings at an alarming rate, while rising sea levels threaten Hawaii's coastal petroglyphs. Here's where technology becomes a time machine. Photogrammetry, stitching thousands of photos into precise 3D maps, allows a Taino carving in Puerto Rico's Caguana to be printed as a tactile replica for the visually impaired, while AI analyzes weathering patterns to predict which sites need urgent protection. Yet the most poignant tools are often the simplest. In Peru, the Quechua mix ground quartz with water and brush it lightly over faded carvings, a technique passed down through generations. The quartz temporarily fills the grooves, making the images visible just long enough to record them, then washes away, leaving no trace. The real magic, though, lies in how these rediscoveries rewrite history. When a storm exposed new carvings on Scotland's Orkney Islands, locals recognized the symbols from medieval tales, proof that Viking sagas had roots stretching back to the Bronze Age. Similarly, thermal drones over New Mexico's Mesa Prieta revealed hundreds of hidden petroglyphs, including a previously unknown solar calendar aligned with volcanic peaks. Each find cracks open another door in the labyrinth of human memory, proving these carvings were never meant to be static. They're living conversations, and with every scan, every collaboration, we're learning to speak back. So the next time you see a drone hovering over a cliff face or an elder guiding a scientist's hand over stone, remember, this isn't just about saving the past. It's about honoring a promise that the language of stone, though whispered across centuries, will never fall silent. Standing before these ancient carvings today, something unexpected happens. The centuries between you and the hands that carved them collapse into a single heartbeat. A tourist tracing the spirals at Newgrange feels the same chill as a Bronze Age priest watching the solstice light strike the stone. A backpacker in Peru's Andes, breathless at the sight of the Intihuatana shadow, shares a moment of wordless understanding with an Inca astronomer who once stood in that exact spot. This isn't just appreciation of history, it's participation in it. The carvings become mirrors, reflecting not just the faces of those who made them, but our own searching gaze staring back. What's remarkable is how these reactions transcend cultural specifics. You don't need to know the Navajo story of Spider-Woman to feel the hair rise on your neck when sunlight illuminates her petroglyph at Canyon de Chelly. The geometric precision of Choco Canyon's solar markers stirs awe whether you're a physicist calculating celestial angles or a child marveling at how the rocks catch the sun. Psychologists call this the awe response, a neural fireworks show triggered by encounters with vast, mysterious beauty. But these carvings add something deeper, a sense of shared humanity that bypasses language and ideology. When a Japanese Shinto priest and a Lakota elder meet at Utah's Newspaper Rock, their rituals differ, but the reverence in their fingertips as they touch the stone is identical. This universality has practical roots. Many carvings tap into innate human neurology, the way spirals activate our visual cortex's motion detectors, creating a subtle sensation of movement, or how symmetrical patterns trigger dopamine release in the brain's reward centers. The makers didn't know neuroscience, but they understood effect. The Tibetan monks who carved mantras into mani stones knew repeating certain shapes induced meditative states. The Aboriginal elders painting concentric circles at Uluru recognized their power to focus attention. Today, a CEO on a stress leave and a backpacker recovering from loss might both find their breathing syncing to these ancient rhythms, proving the carver's genius. They built bridges to the sacred using the body's own wiring. Yet the true magic lies in how these sites hold space for contradiction. A geologist might see the Nazca lines as ingenious irrigation markers, while a mystic perceives star maps. Both can be true. Sacred mountains are palimpsests layered with meanings that don't cancel each other out. Modern pilgrims prove this daily. At Ireland's Beara Peninsula, neo-pagans conducting moon rituals beside Celtic carvings pass notebooks to archaeology students sketching the same symbols. Neither group feels dissonance because the stone's language is vast enough to hold science and spirit in the same groove. Perhaps this explains why these places spark such visceral ownership. Visitors often describe feeling called to certain carvings, the Japanese salaryman who dreams of Montana's bighorn medicine wheel years before seeing it, the Bolivian grandmother who touches a Norwegian runestone and inexplicably recalls childhood tales. Jung might call this collective unconscious, but the carvers had another term, memory. The Lakota speak of Wakan, sites where time folds, allowing ancestors and the living to meet. When a hiker in Scotland's Kilmartin Glen suddenly kneels at a cup-marked stone, tears streaming without knowing why, they're experiencing what the builders intended, not just seeing history, but momentarily stepping outside it. The challenge and gift of these carvings is their refusal to be pinned down. They're historical records, but also living invitations. A tourist's iPhone photo of Machu Picchu's Temple of the Condor becomes a family altar print in Seoul. A teenager's graffiti-style sketch of Maori petroglyphs evolves into a mural bridging gang territories in Oakland. The stones keep speaking, not through words, but through the goosebumps on a skeptic's arms as equinox light fills a carved spiral, or the way a veteran's PTSD nightmares ease after tracing Cherokee warrior glyphs in North Carolina. The carvers knew something we're relearning. That wonder isn't passive. It's a current flowing both ways from the mountain to us and back again in an unbroken circuit of awe. Machines are learning to read the mountain's whispers. Across laboratories worldwide, artificial intelligence now pores over millennia-old carvings, detecting patterns invisible to the human eye. In an Oxford University lab, neural networks trained on 30,000 petroglyph images recently made a startling discovery. A recurring spiral symbol in Scottish, Peruvian, and Mongolian rock art shares precise mathematical ratios, suggesting these cultures might have independently developed the same geometric language. This isn't just academic curiosity. It's the birth of a new archaeology where algorithms act as time-traveling interpreters. The global petroglyph database exemplifies this revolution. By digitizing carvings from every continent, researchers can now run cross-comparisons in seconds that would have taken lifetimes. When a team inputted Navajo celestial symbols last year, the system flagged nearly identical motifs in Siberian shamanic art despite the cultures having no known contact. Even more compelling are the matchbox discoveries, small, portable stones carved with symbols that served as prehistoric Rosetta Stones. AI analysis revealed these objects often contain micro-notches corresponding to lunar cycles, suggesting they were both artistic and functional, a kind of Stone Age smartphone encoding ritual and astronomical data. Yet the real frontier lies in decoding the carver's intent. At MIT's Synthetic Intelligence Lab, researchers are developing emotion recognition algorithms to interpret the precious signatures of ancient tools. By analyzing the depth and angle of chisel marks, they've distinguished ritual carvings made with slow, deliberate strokes from practical notation's quick, repetitive motions. Early results suggest some Native American Thunderbird symbols weren't mere drawings, they were signed by specific artisans, their unique hammering patterns identifiable like fingerprints. This technology could soon reconstruct entire workshops from sound waves, virtually replaying the strikes that shaped these stones millennia ago. The implications stretch beyond archaeology. When linguists applied machine learning to undeciphered Vinca symbols from the Balkans, the algorithm detected grammatical structures resembling early Sumerian cuneiform. Meanwhile, in Australia's Dampier archipelago, thermal imaging uncovered ghost carvings, faded petroglyphs whose chemical residues react to infrared, revealing stories Aboriginal elders thought were lost forever. These aren't just recovered artworks, they're bridges to cognitive worlds, showing how ancestors processed time, conflict, and celestial events through stone. But the most profound breakthroughs may come from merging ancient and modern minds. In New Mexico, Hopi elders are collaborating with AI teams to teach machines their oral histories. The result, an algorithm that can read previously enigmatic carvings by cross-referencing them with migration songs passed down through generations. One such trial decoded a maze-like petroglyph in Arizona as a musical score. When played on a traditional flute, the notes replicated the melody of a rain-summoning chant. Suddenly, a silent stone became a centuries-held musical note. This fusion of silicon and sandstone raises urgent questions. Who owns the rights to decoded knowledge? How do we protect sacred symbols from commercial exploitation? Already, blockchain projects are emerging to tag digital petroglyph scans with cultural metadata, ensuring descendant communities control their heritage. The future of these carvings isn't just about what we can learn, it's about how we honor the living threads connecting stone to storyteller, past to present. As the algorithms grow sharper, one truth becomes clear. The mountains have been waiting for this conversation, and they're just beginning to speak. The hands that carved these sacred mountains centuries ago could never have imagined the threats their work would face today. Tourism helicopters buzz over Peru's Nazca lines, their rotor wash slowly eroding ancient glyphs. Rising sea levels lap at Hawaii's coastal petroglyphs, saltwater eating away at stories etched in lava. Even the breath of thousands of visitors to Ireland's Newgrange alters the tomb's humidity, causing spiral carvings to flake like dried skin. These aren't just damages, they're disappearing chapters of humanity's oldest library. But amid the crisis, a quiet revolution is unfolding, one that blends cutting-edge science with indigenous wisdom to shield these stones from the very future they were meant to speak to. Take the unconventional alliance forming at Australia's Burrup Peninsula, where Aboriginal elders work alongside roboticists. Here, ancient rock art depicting the creation-era beings called the Murujuga faces destruction from nearby industrial emissions. The solution: tiny drones no larger than bees, equipped with micro-lasers that scan the carvings weekly, detecting chemical changes invisible to the naked eye. When the drones spot corrosive compounds, local rangers apply a protective gel derived from traditional plant resins used for millennia to preserve tools. It's a marriage of ancestral knowledge and artificial intelligence. Proving preservation doesn't mean freezing these sites in time, it means letting them breathe while keeping them alive. Meanwhile, in Norway's Alta, climate change presents a bizarre paradox. Rising temperatures are melting permafrost that once protected Viking carvings, exposing them to erosion, but the same warming has revealed previously unknown petroglyphs as glaciers retreat. Scientists from the University of Tromsø now use thermal imaging to map these emerging treasures before they vanish, while Sami herders contribute reindeer leather treated with ancient tannins to create protective covers during harsh weather. The collaboration has birthed an unexpected innovation: biodegradable stone bandages infused with lichen spores that strengthen rock surfaces as they grow. The most profound shifts, though, are happening in how we experience these sites. At Choco Canyon, virtual reality now allows visitors to hold 3D printed replicas of fragile carvings, while elders narrate their meanings via augmented reality overlays. It's not replacement, it's amplification, letting the stones speak without being touched. Similarly, Bhutan's sacred cliffs, once vulnerable to climbers, now feature holographic projections of their hidden carvings, visible only during certain lunar phases. These adaptations honor an essential truth: protection isn't about locking the past away, it's about creating new ways to listen. Yet the real heroes are local communities reclaiming stewardship. In the American Southwest, Navajo families train as rock art rangers, blending traditional stories with GPS mapping to monitor petroglyphs. In India's Nilgiri Hills, tribal children learn to document ancestral carvings using smartphone apps that upload directly to encrypted blockchain ledgers, preventing looting. Even UNESCO World Heritage Program now requires indigenous co-management for listed sites, a policy shift sparked by Maori elders' successful campaign to have New Zealand's Taniwa serpent carvings recognized as living entities with legal rights. The urgency of this work hits hardest when you consider what's at stake. These carvings aren't just art or history, they're neural pathways connecting us to collective memory. When a Hawaiian petroglyph of the shark god Kamoholi fades, we lose more than an image. We sever a thread to navigational knowledge that once guided voyagers across the Pacific. When Scottish cup marks vanish beneath acid rain, we erase Bronze Age astronomers' understanding of lunar cycles. The mountains have kept their promises for millennia, holding these stories safe through wars and famines. Now it's our turn to answer, because here's the secret these stones whisper: preservation isn't just about saving the past, it's about safeguarding the future's right to wonder. Every glyph spared from erosion, every myth kept alive in local schools, every algorithm trained to decode forgotten symbols. These are love letters to the next generation's curiosity. The carvers knew their work would change with time. They just trusted we'd be wise enough to keep the conversation going. The carvings on these sacred mountains are more than historical artifacts. They're living conversations, etched not just into rock, but into the very fabric of human curiosity. Think about it. Every spiral, every celestial map, every mythic figure frozen in stone represents a moment when someone stood where you might stand now, gazing up at the same cliffs, wrestling with the same existential questions. What's remarkable isn't just the precision of their astronomy or the beauty of their artistry, it's the universality of their longing. Whether it's an Inca priest charting the solstice or a Navajo elder tracing the path of the Pleiades, these carvers shared a common impulse to reach beyond the visible world and pin their understanding of the cosmos to something eternal. And here's the thing, they succeeded. When sunlight still strikes the Intihuatana stone at Machu Picchu with the same precision it did 5 centuries ago, or when a modern hiker feels their breath catch at the sight of Utah's Barrier Canyon figures emerging from the cliff face, the dialogue continues. The stones don't just preserve ancient knowledge, they collapse time, offering us a direct line to the awe that inspired their creation. That's why these sites feel charged, even to skeptics. It's not mysticism, it's the weight of collective human wonder, pressed into the rock like a handprint. But the true power of these carvings lies in their unfinished nature. They weren't meant to be static relics, but invitations. The Hopi speak of petroglyphs as footprints, not just records of where their ancestors walked, but trails to follow forward. When you stand before a labyrinth carving in Ireland or a shamanic vision in Norway's Alta Fjord, you're not just observing history, you're being asked to participate, to add your voice to a conversation that spans millennia. Maybe that means sketching a spiral in your notebook, or pausing to watch the sunrise align with a petroglyph's shadow, or simply letting the silence of the mountain sink into your bones. This is why preservation matters. It's not about locking these sites away under glass, but ensuring they remain open-ended questions for future generations. When drones scan Peru's Nazca lines or elders teach children to read the songlines in Australia's Uluru, we're not just saving art, we're keeping alive a way of seeing the world that values interconnection, patience, and the courage to ask big questions. In an age of algorithms and ephemeral digital noise, these carvings remind us that some truths need to be carved deep, where wind and water can't erase them. So here's the challenge these mountains leave us with. They've kept their side of the bargain. The stones still speak. The question is, how will we answer? Maybe it starts with planning a pilgrimage to touch the grooves of a Celtic spiral, or supporting the tribal stewards who protect these sites. Or perhaps it's simpler, just stepping outside tonight to trace the constellations our ancestors mapped onto stone, feeling the same stars on your skin that they once used to navigate the divine. The language of stone doesn't require fluency to understand, just the willingness to listen and the humility to recognize that some conversations are meant to outlast us all.